Tell me, how many credit cards do you currently have?
I carry one card.
One credit card?
Like 10 probably, like all the store ones with everything. 2.
10. 10?
Well, I have 5-6 credit cards.
5 or 6? Like a Visa, a couple American Express. Oh, and here comes another one, another Discover. And wow.
I got one credit card, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's maxed out.
I use it just about for everything that I do, all my purchases right now because of the rewards that I get from the card.
All my shopping, hotel reservations.
Absolutely everything that we possibly can.
Everything.
Everything.
All sorts of things.
When you go in places, they make it so easy for you that you are inclined to use them.
Do you remember what type stuff you bought with it?
A lot of cash advances.
Ooh.
Gambling.
Ooh. How much do you think you owe on all of yours collectively?
Right now, probably about 12,000.
I don't owe any.
You really? So you have zero on you?
I pay them off every month.
I think it's about $277.
Nearly 20,000.
4,000 or 5,000.
It's around $5,000.
Whoa, 10,000 up. You were the man on spring break.
You can,
yeah, you are.
I was the man. Now, what kind of rewards have you been able to get?
Cash back.
So $5,000 on the card. 5 times 12 is 60. So $120,000 gets you a couple of round-trip tickets.
Exactly.
It's a good deal.
Oh, it's a fantastic deal. We wouldn't have taken the trip unless we had done that.
Wow, unless you went into credit card debt, you would have never been able to take that Paris trip.
I guess so, yeah.
Now, how much did you have to spend to get that $275?
$30,000.
Is that kind of good math? To spend $30,000 to get $275 back?
Show me something better and I'll sign up for that one.
So if we gave you the money to pay it off right now, you would charge it back up?
Frankly speaking, yeah.
So how long did it take you to pay it off?
I never did. I quit paying on it.
Really? Did they call you?
Oh, repeatedly.
Have you ever heard anyone tell you to get a credit card so you can build your credit? A lease is the best way to buy a car, or you have to get a student loan to go to college. None of these are true, but they're accepted as truth all across America. Americans are drowning in debt. Guess who the #1 target of credit card companies is today? You. The credit card industry has saturated the adult market, and they're now coming after you. Did you know that the number of credit card solicitations you will receive your first semester in college is between 25 and 50? This isn't a game, folks. Don't borrow money. It's dangerous. It's a loaded gun. Be careful.
Please welcome nationally syndicated radio host and New York Times best-selling author, Dave Ramsey.
Tonight's lesson is particularly hard for a speaker, a teacher like me. Because, see, my job is to bring you ideas that you accept as your own. That's called learning. If you accept them as your own, it's going to cause you to go do things differently than you used to do things. The problem I've got this evening is I've got an uphill battle because this lesson goes directly perpendicular against everything in our culture. Just about every message out there talks about how smart and wise you are to go into debt, and I am going to make the rarefied and crazy statement that I think debt is dumb. I think it's stupid. Well, a few of you are kind of getting the idea that maybe that'll work, you know? But can you imagine if I go into a public setting and I'm speaking, you know, in a motivational seminar with a big lineup of big-name seminar guys and that kind of thing, and then I get up there and I'm the guy saying in this culture, car payments are stupid, credit cards are dumb, and home equity loans crazy? I mean, can you imagine that I'm the guy that says you can be a student without a student loan? I mean, that is exactly against everything you hear out there. And so what I've got to do is more than just merely tickle your brain a little bit to get you to look at things differently. I've got to completely crush a cultural paradigm to even be heard on this subject. I'm going to attempt to do that in our time together. With some of you it will work, and some of you are going to go, he's just crazy. The boy's just lost it. And that's fine. I'm cool with that because, well, you know, we've already figured out normal is broke. And I don't want to be normal. My goal is total weirdness. You know, the Wall Street Journal says 70% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. I don't want to be normal. Figure out what most people are doing out there. Don't do it, and you're in pretty good shape. That's an idea. But when it comes to this debt subject, you know, if you tell a lie, you spread a myth loud enough, long enough, and often enough, eventually it becomes accepted as the truth. You know, if I get my compass out, I could establish really quickly that right through there is north, according to a compass. Now, there's always some moron that will argue with that, isn't there? But that's the truth. But if I spent $482 million a year per year for a decade or two trying to convince people that was north, some would begin to believe it. Because they saw it on television, so it must be true. Everything on TV is true, isn't it? I mean, reality TV's real, isn't it? Come on, I mean, really. Isn't it amazing how we just buy into this stuff? And that's what we're talking about here. And see, debt has been marketed to us with such intensity, with such sophistication, and the marketing, and with a large amount of marketing dollars for so long, that to even imagine living without debt requires a complete paradigm shift. A completely new way of looking at things. Now, the way you get a paradigm shift, the way you get a new way of looking at things is you put stuff into your brain that wasn't in there before, and that's what we're going to do tonight. You know, when you read a book and you go, wow, I never thought of that way before, and it gives you a new way of looking at marriage, or a new way of looking at raising kids, or a new way of, you know, controlling your physique and losing weight, or building muscle, or learning to run, or ride bikes, or whatever it is you're going to do. When you get a new way of doing things from learning. And that's what we're doing here tonight, so congratulations for being with us. You know, our great-great-grandparents thought debt was a sin. I mean, think about it. Here's some interesting actual facts. The 1910 Sears catalog. Now, this is Sears. Credit card city Sears. The 1910 Sears catalog said, buying on credit is folly. Now, that's another generation, isn't it? J.C. Penney, Mr. J.C. Penney, was nicknamed, because he was so tight, James Cash Penney, because he didn't believe in debt. And while he was alive, J.C. Penney, the stores, offered no credit, ever. Henry Ford of Ford Motor Company fame hated debt. Ford Motor never offered credit on cars until 10 years after General Motors did, because of Henry's personal disdain for debt. These are actual facts. But that's a whole 2-3 generations ago almost now, isn't it? And we look back there, our great-great-grandparents basically thought debt was a sin. Our grandparents, they thought debt was really dumb, and they borrowed on a couple of things. And, you know, so around 1950, we see the birth of what we now call the credit card by a guy named Frank McNamara. Frank printed up some plastic cards in the city of New York City, and started handing them out as a way to go. Several restaurants began to accept these cards, and it was the very first credit card out there. It was called Diners Club, and it is still around out there, actually. Around 1958, out on the West Coast, there was a little company called Bank AmeriCard sprung up, which was the precursor and later became known as Visa. In 1958, American Express was born. So this is some interesting history on this. See, our grandparents thought debt was dumb. Our parents come along, they start to borrow on everything. By 1970, only 15% of Americans owned plastic. In 1976, Bank AmeriCard changed its name and became Visa, just 30 some odd years ago. Visa, in the scope of the history of the world, is a fairly new product. And here's an interesting one, too. Some of you didn't know this. Back in 1986, Sears got in a little dispute with Visa, didn't like the fee structure. So they said, we'll show you, we'll just start our own brand. And Discover Card was born by Sears. And it became the most profitable division of Sears. And when Sears got in financial trouble, the way they survived that financial upheaval was they sold off the Discover Card accounts and brand and made a ton of money on it. So our great-grandparents thought debt was a sin. Our grandparents thought it was really stupid. Our parents borrowed on a few things. We come along, we borrow on everything. I mean, you go down to a pet store, you get 90 days, same as cash on Rover. Come here, baby, Repo Man's here. And over 6 billion credit card offers went out last year. 6 billion, that's 6,000 million. And 18 million people accepted it. One of my listeners mailed me this in from our radio show from Bank One. It's the Bank One Platinum MasterCard. It's interesting. It says solid line of credit up to $100,000. It's addressed to Mr. Toby Cocker on Rocky Mountain Parkway. And my listener wrote across the front, Dave, this is my dog's name. Toby the Cocker Spaniel. And Toby's been dead 4 years. 6 billion credit card offers out there, including Mr. Toby Cocker. What we're saying here is that banks are very, very good at selling their product. And what you and I have got to realize as consumers is debt is not a privilege, debt is a product.